Hello and welcome to the Khayrion podcast, your guide to everything concerning the politics and business of the Middle East, North Africa, and beyond. Welcome, dear listeners. My name is Katarina Shomolyova. I am the CEO of Khayrion, and my dear guest today is Dr. Sajjad Ahmad, an expert on international relations. I would like to discuss the proposed India, Middle East, and Europe corridor with Dr. Ahmad. And my first question is, what is actually this project, the India, Middle East, Europe corridor?
Thank you very much, Katrina, for giving me the time and to speak about this corridor. Basically, it's a transcontinental economic corridor that has been proposed by multiple countries in the sidelines of G20 summit that recently happened in India. And as the name shows, India-Middle East Europe corridor. So the countries that have signed the memorandum of understanding, other than the India, they are United States, Saudi Arabia, UAE, EU countries, Italy, France, and Germany. They are the part of this economic corridor. So the basic aim of this corridor is to boost economic growth, economic integration, create job markets, employment markets, accelerate trade and commerce, encourage international cooperation, and basically move goods from India, passing through Gulf countries, and then land in the Europe. So this is a 4,800 kilometer corridor, which is proposed. And there are two parts, East Corridor and North Corridor. The east side connects India to the Gulf countries, Gulf states, and the Gulf states to the Europe are connected through the northern side. So this is the proposed corridor. And this corridor, they are going to build a railway line initially. The initial project is to build the railway line, passing through India and Gulf countries, and then to Israel, and from there to Europe.
How exactly should a railway line from India to the Gulf countries look like?
Well, it's a plan. Right now, we don't have much details about it. And also the financing, we don't know how many countries are financing and how. The mechanisms, we don't know yet. These details are yet to be known, but it's that the proposed railway line is to move goods from India towards Gulf countries and then towards Israel, and from there they will be shipped to Europe. That's the details that we have right now. Okay. And on this later stage, they are going to build the digital and electric cables, the fiber optics line, the hydrogen pipelines. So this is the proposed plan that this corridor has.
What goods are we talking about?
The goods, there can be multiple sort of goods. So, there can be food items, there can be energy pipelines also, digital cables, fiber optics as well. But the goods are specifically, that are needed, general items which boost the trade between these countries. Any country which has certain goods that it wants to export. So that will create a market for the participating countries to send their goods towards the other countries, to trade with them.
Where does this project stand in relation to the Belt and Road Initiative?
Yeah, so the Belt and Road Initiative is, as I told you, that it's spread in different continents from China. And China is basically the one which is doing most of the investment in these massive infrastructure projects. While the details of IMEC, India, Middle East, Europe corridor, we don't know much details about it. But that includes the countries that aims to connect India and the Gulf countries to the Europe for trade. So, and also the political side is, as I mentioned, that there is a hype which is there in the United States and Europe and the European Union about this project that can also be seen as a rivalry between the United States and China. Because China in the recent time has expanded its political clout in the Middle East. It is doing a lot of investment in Middle East, UAE, Saudi Arabia, where there are construction projects going on. And also, if you know the recent move by China in which it brought a rapprochement between the two Middle Eastern rivals, Saudi Arabia and Iran, that has taken United States by surprise. So, which means that the Chinese political clout is also increasing in the Middle East. And they, at one point of time, they also offered to mediate between the historic Palestine-Israel conflict. So that sees that, it can also be considered that United States wants to take the ground in the Middle East, back in the Middle East. But we must see that, the things in the Middle East are now changing.
Absolutely. Do you think China's role is going to be impacted by the IMEC project?
Well, Chinese role can be impacted in the way this is a situation that will be unfolded after a while. Once we see that the work has started going on, which country is financing, I mean, how much amount they are financing. So then we can see the China. But Chinese are also, there are few Gulf states that are also part of the BRI. For instance, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, they are also part of the BRI project of China. And China has done recently massive investments in Saudi Arabia and UAE, particularly because it wants more return from these countries. They are more economically stable. So we will have to see how the situation unfolds.
Do you think that India is aiming for playing a stronger role in the Middle East?
India has recently trying to build its reputation as a global power for the past few decades in terms of trade, in terms of economics, in terms of market. So India is in the driving seat of this project, that is for sure. And Indian surplus goods would be transported, and Indian economic development would, economically India will have a benefit, as well as it would be in the driving seat. So that is also beneficial for the participating countries as well.
Do you think India is to a certain extent bothered by the pretty strong economic and political influence that China has in the Middle East, and it wants to step in as a sort of a possibly superior power eventually?
Well, India and China, despite their rivalries, they also have a billions of dollar trade in between. But of course, it can be considered as economic rivalry. It can be considered as political rivalry between these two countries. This is what is written by some of the analysts, that the country behind BRI is China, while the country behind IMEC is United States. So we can see it through this lens as well.
Do you think the United States is going to play a vital role in financing the IMEC project?
Well, as I mentioned, that the finances of this project are not yet known. So we'll have to see that which country is financing how much amount. But other than that, what I see is that there might be few challenges to this corridor. Once you transport the goods from India, from Middle East towards, and you will have a transportation cost, loading and unloading cost, like through railway, and then you will offload it at the port, and then you will again load it. So this loading and unloading cost might increase the goods prices, and it might increase the geopolitical rivalry between certain countries. For instance, this corridor bypasses Turkey, which is considered a historic trade partner, sitting at a position where it moves goods from Asia to Europe historically. And still, most of the trades is through Turkey. So that might start some geopolitical rivalries. For instance, the Turkish president, after 2 days of this corridor announcement, he said that this corridor will be incomplete without our country. But geographically, if you see, by including Israel into it, they have bypassed Turkey. They have bypassed Turkey. And the geographical position of Turkey is slightly above, so it does not need to be included in that. That's one thing. But there might be other states that would be unhappy with this. For instance, Egypt, because Egypt relies on the Suez Canal traffic. It is one of the earnings of the Egypt. So Egypt relies on the Suez Canal. But if this corridor happens, and so it is expected that some of the traffic that passes through Suez Canal would be decreased.
Probably quite significantly.
Quite significantly, yes. So Turkey's president has given the statement to the media right after 2 days of this announcement that this corridor is incomplete without their country. And also Egypt might have some issues. Egypt has some concerns about that. There's significant decrease in the traffic in Suez Canal, which is one of the major sources of revenue for Egypt. So that might create some political rivalries, some friction, some geopolitical rivalries. And I also believe that Turkey was not included because it also has some conflicts going on with the neighboring states, for instance, Greece and others. So probably that was one of the reasons why Turkey was not included in this.
Yes, that was going to be my next question, whether the decision to exclude Turkey and Egypt from this project are purely geographical.
Well, it can be geographical, it can be political as well. At least in the case of Turkey, we can see that Turkey has some sort of conflicts with the neighboring countries one which is part of the EU, which is Greece. So maybe that was one of the reasons, other than the geography, that they wanted to bypass Turkey. And also because Israel was included in it. So how can Turkey be part of it? Because geographically, if you see, that makes a shorter route from Israel to Europe.
Obviously. The issue is that a few years ago, nobody would have thought that including Israel in such a project would have been imaginable.
Well, I don't think so, because India is already collaborating with Israel. India has closer cooperation with Israel for the past few years. And this whole normalization project of relations of GCC countries with Israel is going on for quite some time. And the Saudi normalization of relations with Israel, the UAE, it has started, it initiated its diplomatic relations with Israel. So probably in the recent past, we see that this was going on for quite some time.
What other projects with similar goals are at play in the region?
So the other project, of course, of not this scale, which is a massive project, this IMEC, but there is another project that is a development road project which Iraq initiated, and now the Turkey is taking keen interest in this project. And that project is a small one, which considered a 1,200 kilometer rail line from the south of Iraq, Basra, which will transport the energy, the oil to Turkey, and then Turkey will further move it towards Europe. From the Persian Gulf to Turkey and then to Europe, that is a project. So Iraq launched this project, and it was looking for some finances from different countries, and Turkey has started taking interest into it. And very recently, after this project's announcement, Turkey said that it is in intense negotiations with Qatar and UAE. So which means that there are negotiations which are going on with other GCC countries. And of course, there will be challenges. There are challenges in all these kind of projects, but depends upon the security situation of Iraq. And they will build a railway line, and then there's a motorway, and then there are hydrogen lines that they will build along that. So that is going on. And if it happens, if it is successfully constructed, then of course it will bring this oil and energy supplies towards Turkey, and from Turkey to the Europe. So that is one thing which is going on parallel to it. But both are in the initial stages, both corridors, the IMEC and there's this development road project. They are all in the phase of negotiations and very initial stages that we.
Why do you think these projects have been proposed, excluding the Suez Canal, excluding Egypt? Why?
Well, obviously, the aim is for more economic integration, for political integration, and of course, to create some new energy markets, to create some employment markets, job markets to benefit, with the economic integration, the country would be benefited. And after this Ukraine crisis, we see that Europe is trying to move away from the dependency of Russian gas. And of course, these kind of projects will, bring more energy and oil to Europe more easily if they are successfully built, and there will be alternatives. So if something happens in some area, if some conflict happens in some area, then there will be an alternative. And moreover, of course, that perhaps we could see that into the geopolitical rivalry between United States and China, the rivalry between United States and China, that if it strengthens, if United States wants to gain ground, which it is probably losing in Middle East, then these kind of initiatives will serve the purpose.
How does Egypt react to these initiatives?
Well, Egypt's reaction was not as explicit as it was of Turkey. But Egypt is definitely concerned about it. Egypt is definitely concerned about once this happens, then, of course, the traffic that Suez Canal would be decreased.
Do you expect Egypt to come up with some alternative projects of its own?
Well, in this scenario, I don't think so, that Egypt will initiate, because the economic issues that Egypt is also having, and with this recent conflict between Hamas and Israel, we'll see that how the situation unfolds, because there was a push from Biden administration to take the refugees from Gaza, and Egypt refused that. Egypt, in the backdoor negotiation, Egypt refused that, because of course the public is charged, the public opinion is changing. There are protests, and if it brings more Palestinians in the Sinai Desert, that would create some political problems for General Sisi. So Egypt is the backdoor channels and what the sources of the media are saying, that Egypt is not very keen to take the refugees.
Yeah, not just for political reasons, but I believe also for security and economic reasons as well.
Of course, economic reasons, security reasons, because of course, the Hamas can build more network, and Hamas, that will not end Hamas if these refugees come. In fact, it will expand the network of Hamas through Egypt.
But you have basically taken my next question, and that was, how do you expect the current Israel-Hamas conflict to influence the implementation of the IMEC project or the proposed Basra-Turkey project?
Well, that's a good question, and we should see that through the geopolitical lens. I already mentioned what Egypt's position is on this conflict, but we should also see that the public pressure and the pressure of the humanitarian organizations, they are building upon the Israel because of the aggression that is happening and because of the violation of the human rights that is happening. And we also see that some Latin American countries, they have brought back their diplomats from Israel. So if this pressure builds up, and if the Arab countries, GCC countries, they also take certain initiatives, same initiatives, then the situation, we'll see what will happen. But one thing is for sure, that the normalization of Saudi Arabia and Israel relations, they have been shelved for a while now, that I believe. It's not going to be on the same pace once the conflict would be over. There would be one repercussion. And we will also see that how the Arab countries, because now the public pressure in Arab countries is also building up. So how they react and what would be their next move, we'll have to see.
Do you think that given everything that has unfolded in Israel and Palestine since October 7th, is the IMEC initiative still realistic?
Even before the October 7th, this project is quite ambitious. As I said earlier, that it has some challenges. One of the challenges, despite the cost and other logistical issues, is that all these countries which are participating in this project, they have different political structures. Europe, Middle East, and India. So you see that the political systems and structures and bureaucracy is different in the GCC countries as compared to Europe. So we'll have to see that whether and how and when they will be able to construct this corridor. This will, of course, take gradually, but we are yet to see what and how will they start the initiatives. How will they start building up, and which country will finance? What will be the financing mechanism for this project? And of course, now the security concerns will be there as well after the October 7th, at least in some countries, because Jordan, this corridor also passes through Jordan. This corridor also passes through Israel. So we'll have to see the implications, and we'll have to see that, if this escalates, if the ongoing conflict escalates, then it will have negative repercussions definitely on this corridor.
Absolutely, not just from a political and economical standpoint, but also due to security reasons, obviously.
Yes, the security reasons, because we see that the United States forces and the United States bases in the Middle East, they have been targeted recently in Iraq and Syria. The figures that are given by the United States administration is that in 1 month, there were more than 10 attacks on military bases, on the military targets of United States. And then you have also the large military bases of United States in different parts of Middle East. So we'll have to see that the security concerns now from October 7th would be there. The security concerns are quite relevant in this scenario.
I believe that. Do you think that, given all the challenges that the recent events in Israel and Palestine mean for the proposed IMEC project, could they strengthen the position of the Basra-Turkey project?
Okay, so I'll answer this question in two parts. A, it has less involvement of more states. Like there are less states which are participatory states in this project.
Which makes things a lot easier.
A lot easier. And it's not passing through multiple countries. From south of Iraq, it's going towards Turkey. And B, the security situation is grave in the sense that even in Iraq, still have a threat of ISIS. And now with this situation of October 7th, there are attacks on American bases, American troops, American military installations in Iraq. So, of course, we'll have to see that how, and if the Qatar and if UAE joins, then things would be much better in terms of financing this $17 billion project, because Iraq might not be able to finance it itself. And it is looking for the donor countries, for the countries to participate. It's actively looking for it. And Turkey has stepped in. And Turkey is also in negotiations with Qatar and UAE for this project. So if 3-4 states, they decide and the situation of the security improves in Iraq, then I think it's more feasible. It's more realistic to do that. It's smaller, less involvement of different countries, and the political structures, financing, that can be done more quickly as compared to IMEC.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. I believe this has been a very informative podcast, and I'm really looking forward to all of our next future projects together. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Khairion podcast. We are looking forward to sharing with you more exciting news on the politics and business of the Middle East, North Africa, and beyond. For further information, please follow us at khairion.com, as well as on X and LinkedIn.